Good morning, everybody. I just want to check at the back. Are you good there? Do you have the screen? Beautiful. Now, Darren spoke about the state of our rivers. And Gerhard had a very valuable contribution in the sense of consumption. And we'll get into a few more slides there just now. The main thing is we don't know how much we're wasting until we start monitoring it. What Gerhard didn't show you, of being in his office, he's got some very nice graphs of companies that they monitor the flow and how they can see leaks, toilet leaks because of high flow at night and so forth. That also has a very good, it's a money saving, but also it extends the life of our water systems and availability of water. Now, in many cases, that will be the first step, because you need to know what you're using and where you're using it. And once that's done, and you can see where you can optimize your system, the next thing is to look at alternative water. Now, alternative water has become more and more important, especially in the Gauteng world, for that matter, Bloemfontein and Durban and everywhere else, because municipal systems are failing. Municipal systems can no longer keep up with the demand on the one end, and in some cases we've got some real failures in terms of maintenance. If we say municipal systems, we're talking drinking water as well as wastewater. So the drinking water systems cannot supply enough, as you know in Gauteng, and our wastewater plants that are either not being properly maintained or overcapacity pollute our rivers. And that does affect us. Unfortunately, the concept that if I flush it is out of sight is not my problem, I'll show you how it actually becomes your problem. Let's look at the consumption side first. This is just a graph of water use, City of Joburg. This is where they're supposed to operate in the green line, Rand Water can supply on a temporary basis. But look at the consumption there. Now you wonder why our reservoirs are constantly empty. And that total consumption is not necessarily the user. Gerhard said we lose 46% in our networks. That's something that we cannot do anything about. And again, the media is often focusing on these things. They often talk problems, they talk negative, they talk down. Today we want to talk about solutions and what we can do to change this. Now, the next one, for some reason this thing is now not working. Beautiful. City of Cronje. You can see a lot closer to the actual demand, looking much better there. And then City of Cronje, also using quite a bit more than the allocation. So combined, Gauteng is using a lot more water than what Rand Water is geared to supply. Now, some people were talking about the Lesotho Highlands project and how that's affecting the supply, and there will be restrictions because of the Highlands project. If you look at this, I've got some bad news for you. When they open that tunnel, when we get water from Lesotho, the problem is not going to disappear because we're consuming more than what we can supply within the network. So it doesn't matter whether we have 100% full dams. If we can't get that water to the user, we have a problem. And that's exactly what we have. This is the only Afrikaans slide here, but you know the Supreme Court recently had to close because they didn't have water. Now I know of companies as well, I don't want to mention their names here, but how many of you know of companies affected, or how many of you work for companies, your own companies that have been affected by the water situation? Staff cannot flush toilets, I see heads going like this all over. Staff cannot use ablutions. Customers, visitors can't use ablutions. So what now? So I want to focus on 5 different interventions that we can do. The nice thing is these interventions save us money while improving our water security at the same time. The first one, we look at rainwater harvesting. There is a myth, and I've heard many people telling me it's no use harvesting rainwater because it's not enough. Now, by a show of hands, I want to ask 2 questions quickly. Who in this room has either backup power or solar power at their houses or at their businesses? Okay. How many of you run completely off-grid that you don't use any ESCOM, you only use your alternative energy? Only 2, 3. Now, that speaks volumes. Because on the one end, we expect of rainwater to take us off-grid, to take care of our total need, and if it doesn't, we're not interested. But when we do solar power, most people will use that to save money, to reduce the load on ESCOM, and to have power when there's load shedding. But you still have an ESCOM connection. Rainwater is exactly the same. It's not there to take care of all your needs all year round. But whenever it rains, you harvest some water, you reduce your intake of fresh water from the municipality, and you allow the municipal systems to recover. So the municipal systems become your ESCOM. They then have capacity when your tanks are empty. And just look at volumes that we can harvest. 1 square meter, that's about the size of this. 1 square meter, 1 millimeter of rain gives you 1 liter of water. If you look at it different, and you have a property with a 200 square meter roof, you can harvest 2,000 liters of water with only 10 millimeters of rain. Now, I did a calculation for a site in Limpopo not so long ago. They get 600 millimeters per year. Now, if you take your 600 millimeters per year and you have a 200 square meter roof, can you see how much water you can actually capture? You may not be able to store all of that, but even if you can store 50% of that, it speaks to water security and it speaks to you saving money because that's free water. So, if we say rainwater harvesting is not worth it, think again. If you need bigger tanks, Chris is sitting in the back there, they do megaliter tanks, so that's also not a problem. You can store water. The other side of it is parking lots, hard landscaping, hard surfaces. Now, I don't want to drink water coming off a parking lot because often it's contaminated with oil and tire waste and whatever else. But you can use it for non-drinking purposes. How many square meters, now let me rather say how many hectares of parking lot do we have in Cronje? And all of that water runs off into our rivers and into our dams. Then we say we have a water shortage. Now, I've been very vocal about this, both in the city of Cape Town and Nelson Mandela-based drought situations. You know, in Cape Town, during the 2018 drought and day zero that everybody in Gauteng and worldwide knew about, the city of Cape Town was still dumping 450 million litres of treated effluent into the sea on a daily basis. Nelson Mandela Bay was still dumping 250 million litres of treated effluent into the sea on a daily basis. Then we say we have a water shortage. We don't have a water shortage. We have a water management problem. Cape Town is now about to spend 5 billion rand on desalinating seawater, which will give them 50 to 70 million litres a day. 5 kilometers upstream, they dump 60 to 80 million litres a day of treated effluent into the sea. But we say we have a water shortage. We need to think a little bit different. What can our parking areas do for us? in terms of non-drinking water. If you look at flash floods, yes, our rain patterns do change. It's been changing for the last couple of thousand years. But flash floods are also man-created because when we have natural earth, like we have around the country club here, and it rains, the soil absorbs a lot of water before you get runoff. With roofs, parking lots, and roads, every drop that falls runs off. So there's no absorption happening, and we create artificial flash floods, and then we wonder why we have them. It's flash floods by design. It's as simple as that. Now, when we harvest rainwater, very important, we now first fill our tanks before we get runoff, before we get overflows. And you're going to say to me, yeah, really, I've got a 5,000 litre tank at home, you think that's going to make a difference to the flood? No, it's not. But 5,000 litre tanks is 5 million litres. Now it starts making a difference. Now we start reducing our flash floods. So you see how this is all interconnected at the end of the day. And how what we do on site can have a huge positive impact downstream. What we just need to keep in mind with rainwater, it tends to be acidic, and you need to adjust your pH before you take it into the property. Brendan will tell you what happens to your copper pipes if you put acidic water through there. How many years before you start replacing them?
It's going to be a while, for 5 years.
5 years average. Then you'll start seeing water leaks coming through because you're putting acidic water through your copper pipes. Very important is that you do pH adjusting if you do take rainwater indoors. There's a few, this is not the only ones, but just a few things to keep your tanks clear. I spoke with somebody on Monday about this, and he said, you won't believe the amount of debris I'm getting from my gutters. I said, yes, that's why you need a pre-filter before you go into your tanks. Otherwise, you collect all of that debris into your tanks and you pump that. It shortens the lifespan of your pumps. If it's organic, it may cause problems with pollution, and it put a lot of strain on your filters. So there's your leaf catcher. There's also first flush, that's not on here. There's these screens. That is a photo that I took in Cape Town. You can see that wedge wire screen catching even algae coming off a tile roof. You've got your top of tank filters, you've got your vortex filters. These are very, very nice, especially for commercial buildings. With a vortex filter, you lose 10% of your water because it uses 10% to flush out the filter. But you never have to go and manually clean it. So from a maintenance point of view, it makes a lot of sense. When you do backup systems, Gerhard touched on that, people spending money on backup systems. You've got those 10 tanks standing there and they're all empty now. So what now? Now you have a backup system, and then you want to do a rainwater system, and then you want to do a borehole, and your borehole is dry or so contaminated you can't use it, and then you eventually, how do you manage all those systems? And we've got a very simple way of doing that. One of them is for your backup systems is oversize your tank. In other words, if you need 10,000 litre backup, put 20 or 30 or 40,000 litre tanks up there. If you need 1 million litre backup, put 2 or 3 million litre tanks up there. And your backup, you will set to a specific level, so your municipal water will always fill up to that point. Whenever it rains, your rainwater will fill up the rest of the tank. And when your rainwater fills the rest of the tank and you start using water from the tank, you first use your free water. Now, City of Joburg, for commercial properties, charge about 64 Rand per kilolitre for water, and they charge another 34 Rand for sewage. Your sewage is connected to your water intake. So you're paying 98 Rand per kilolitre plus VAT. you're saving 98 rand per kiloliter a year. But again, when you use this water, you allow the network to recover because you're not using network water. So when you're getting down to this level, there is water in the network. At the same time, another benefit is, let's say you've used your rainwater and your network is off, and you get a bit of rain, it will immediately top up this tank and you have water again. So it's a win-win-win all the way. You have one system, one pump, one filtration system, and it gives you a lot of peace of mind, and it saves you a huge amount of money. That's the lekker thing. Whatever you do here from an intervention point of view saves you money. Whatever you spend on central systems costs you money because at some point it's financed and somebody need to pay the taxes for that. So this is a very simple way of optimizing your rainwater system and backup system, joining it together on site. This is just a quick diagram. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We have your water tank, you have your VSD control pump, your filtration, sterilizing, pH correction, and you go into the building. Now in this case, we're not filling a tank. This is a direct municipal supply. We have a direct municipal supply into the building. And if you set the pressure on this one higher, then that will be primary and this one will be your backup. If you set your pressure higher on this one, that will be your primary and that will be your backup if your tanks are empty or if the pump fails or whatever. So here you can still use this to fill up tanks as well. But here you have the best of both worlds. Because now, if the power drops, you have your municipal water pushing through. If your pump fails, you have your municipal water pushing through. You never need to go out and close this tap and open that tap. And whoever you want to get up 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter to go and change taps outside. This is a full automatic system. As I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the design of it, just know that it's a way you can have it hassle-free, like you have your electricity and your inverter that kicks in the minute that Eskom drops. You can have the same in water. You can have your automatic backup system, a no-hassle system. Very important here is backflow preventer that is not a non-return valve. A backflow preventer is designed to guarantee that your water doesn't push back into the municipal pipeline. And I was in a meeting in Cape Town where one of the developers said, listen, we've got a grey water system, but that's completely separate. And we have a municipal dedicated line. We want the city to exempt us from having to install a backflow preventer. Now, it's a multi-million rand development. That backflow preventer cost a few thousand. And I said to the developer, well, the city was hard, took a hard stance and they said, we tell you you'll do it and you will do it. I said, listen, sir, what you need to understand is, if the municipal pipeline becomes contaminated at some point, you can stand up and say, it's not mine, I have a backflow preventer in place. If you don't have a backflow preventer, some ways in future, a plumber may interconnect between your grey water system and your drinking water system without knowing. And you can have contamination. So that's something that's, for me, not even debatable. It's something that we definitely need to install. Now, if that system is set up properly, it will make primary use of your rainwater, or as I said, you can change it around depending on where you set the pressure higher. It will use municipal water direct from the municipal supply when your rainwater is depleted or if there's a problem with your pump. And the backup municipal water in the tank will only be used in real case of emergency when there's nothing else. So it's a full automatic system, no human intervention required. It's maximum saving of municipal water because you're using rainwater, giving the municipal system chance to recover. And the more alternative water we use, the better chance the system has to recover. Which means there should be water in the system when we need it. This is a practical. Brendan, you're not allowed to laugh, okay? This was a retrofit. The original municipal supply came under the floor there. This is from the rainwater tanks. The washing machine is this side and the toilet supply is going that way. So the issue backflow preventer, you can see it's significantly bigger than a non-return valve. There is a pressure reducing valve. So what happens is the pressure from the tanks is set higher, so the tanks will always be first priority. And if the tanks cut out, because the tanks are empty, automatically municipal water will push through to the toilets, but also back down this pipe to feed the washing machine. Very simple installation. It was done by an OPSA-approved installer, so don't have to worry about that. In this case, you can see that tap is closed, so the tank supply is now cut off to the toilets. There was some maintenance done at that point. But this is a very, very easy way of doing it, and you know you have a hassle-free system for the rest of your life. So my message here is, it doesn't have to be a problematic system. It doesn't have to, oh, I've got to remember to do this, and I must, when it rains, I must go, nobody's going to do that. So just looking at 3 case studies. The first one is, well, the first 2 are single residentials, and the third one looking at commercial building. Here the customer installed that wire mesh screen that I showed you. It was the most practical for this application. You can see that cover can open there so you can clean the screen. And then you have the downpipe. You made a few changes to his gutters. The downpipe will feed into an underground tank. He actually split his pool into 2 halves. And the one half, you made a rainwater collection tank with fake grass on there. And then the pool with the sliding deck obviously reducing evaporation. And that's his backup water system there. So it looks very neat, it's practical, it's simple to operate. And even if you look at the pressure pump, we've got the city pump, submersible booster pump in there. And you can't even see that once you put that patch of grass on there, you can't even see it. Beautiful backup system that he built there. The second one was a bit more difficult because there's a downpipe going to the street. There are 3 downpipes here also running to the street at the back. So all that water is wasted from site. Now in Cape Town at one point there was a bylaw that told you must take your rainwater to the street. You were not allowed to capture it many years back. So to get this for rainwater harvesting, you can see this is a double story here, that's single story there, this is a flat roof dropping this way, this gutter is going that way. How on earth are you going to manage rainwater harvesting there? It becomes almost impossible. Agree? Okay, the solution was a roof over here, which had to happen anyway, but then a roof at the back here, which made a big difference. So the gutter from this roof could drop back onto that one. This downpipe could drop onto that one. Because it's double story, that downpipe could be diverted over the notch here onto that one. This one drops back automatically, and the angle of this gutter was changed to drop to the back and not to the front. The only water we couldn't capture in the central system was from that part of the roof. If we had to do that, we wouldn't need a pump to pump it through. So if we look at it from a practical point of view, there you can see the double story pipe diverted. This was the part we couldn't capture, so that goes into a 1,000-litre tank that is used for car washing, filling a water feature and stuff like that. And then at the back, you see that pipe coming in, you see that pipe coming in, the one on the left where the angle is changed, and everything dropping onto this roof. And from that roof, you've got a 110 pipe down to the water tanks. Small investment, but without pumping, you catch all of your rainwater. In this case, it's about 250 square meters of roof. So 30 millimeters of rain, you harvest 7,500 liters. Can you do a 7,500 liters every time it rains? Makes a difference, eh? You now think rainwater harvesting makes sense? You think it's worth it? half of my audience is asleep. Okay, then the same house went a bit further, installed a grey water system that catch everything from the bathrooms and the washing machine, except for the toilets. And that grey water is going into the garden for irrigation purposes. So now you have free rainwater coming down, which you harvest. You use it in the house, you discharge it as grey water, you harvest that again and use it for irrigating your garden. So you have a double win of the same water. If you look at the commercial building, all of this water was running away. These roofs didn't have gutters, and you look at all that hard landscaping there. So what they could do is install gutters here, divert that down to a central point. There are gutters, the downpipes are just discharging into the garden. Reroute those downpipes, and that can be your drinking water. All the runoff from your parking lot can be harvested there, goes to your irrigation tanks, and you use that to keep your garden alive. A garden that's looking good adds value to your property. I used to have an irrigation business in the 90s when automatic irrigation systems sort of started becoming fashion. People would often ask me, remember it was many years back, if I spend 15,000 Rand on an automatic irrigation system, can I add 15,000 Rand to the price of the house when I sell it? And I said, no. Nobody will spend 15,000 or pay 15,000 Rand for a second-hand irrigation system. But because your garden receives the right amount of water at the right time and your garden is looking beautiful, you can add 30,000 Rand to the price of your house. And this is exactly what you can do in cases like this as well. Permeable paving, that's something that I think is way underutilized in South Africa at the moment. It significantly reduces flash floods because you don't have runoff of the parking, you actually capture it right there. I've seen a number of people taking photos, you're welcome to do so, but also we have at the back there behind the link, you can write down the name and make a copy of the slideshow, we can send it to you as well. So now you can harvest all of that water without creating a storm. Harvest it underground, pump it above ground storage, doesn't matter, and you can use that. Now, as I said, rainwater may not be enough, but it can be supplemented by use of grey water or on-site treated wastewater. Very important, if you use alternative water, grey water or wastewater recycling, to flush your toilets, to irrigate your garden, it means you put less pressure on your rainwater system. So the rainwater in your tanks will also last longer. Why do you want to use rainwater to flush your toilets and then you need to go and buy water to drink? Use alternative water to flush your toilets and you'll have rainwater in your tanks for longer. Yet another way of saving. This is just one slide on HVAC. This photo was taken in Van Reinsdorp in Makwaland in the month of October. That's the runoff from one single air conditioner that you see there. How much water can you harvest of your air cons, your heating systems, your ventilations? And that's pure distilled water. What if you've heard about air water generation? A few hands here. This is air water generation. It's condensate from there. Pure drinking water, we're dumping it on the paving and then we say we have a shortage of water. Harvest that, lead these pipes to your rainwater tanks. Again, you don't need another system to do that. You just need to get this water to your rainwater tanks. And that will constantly top up your rainwater as long as your air cons are running, as long as your geysers are heating water. Immediately you have an additional top up. So there's an additional benefit. If you look at our pools, pool water has never been seen as a source because of the chlorine or the salt content. What we can now have is a pool that can become a backup. Now, I'm not going to tell you to drink your pool water because you never know what happened in that pool, okay? But it can be a source of water in case of emergency, be it for toilet flushing, washing your clothes, or whatever the case may be. And the way you do that is you get away from high chlorine content, you get away from high salt content by installing something like the Blue Lagoon pool systems. You get UV with copper, UV with ozone, different combinations. And you can either reduce your chlorine by 90% or you can go completely chlorine free. Now you have a freshwater pool. Oh, sir, but I don't have a place for water tanks. I can't harvest rainwater, I don't have a place for water tanks. There's your water tank. You can top that up with rainwater. There's no need to top up your pool with municipal water. Brendan and I had a bit of a chat the other day on LinkedIn about that as well. When you have a rainwater tank, you take your overflow to your pool. Why do you want your overflow to run away and then buy water for your pool? Now this pool was taken with a standard Nikon camera. Nothing was photoshopped on it. And you can still see the creepy crawly pipe at the back there. And this pool hasn't seen a drop of chlorine for 6 years when this photo was taken. This is what's achievable. Also, it's good for your health because you don't have that chlorine irritating your nose, irritating your eyes. You don't have the dry skin and all of that. But besides that, it becomes a perfect reservoir in times of need. This is a commercial pool at the gym. Now, there's a lot about this. They had to replace the steel structure of the roof because of the chlorine gas that corroded the steel. Then they replaced this with this UV, and this photo was taken using my cell phone about 9 months into operation. You can see how beautiful that pool is looking there. So even there, on commercial pools, you can install UVs, you reduce your chlorine, and your backwash water is also usable. You can take that to toilet flushing, you can take it to your garden as well. Quite possible. And your pool can be automatic backup for certain functions when you install a lifting station or pressure system right next to it. And this can be fully automated. I can show you the case study. I'm not going to do it now because it's taking too much time, but if somebody wants a case study, I can give it to you, where we built an actual fire pool long before Cronje. And I can promise you it was fully automatic. With the press of a button, the pool pump or this pump will start and it will pump the water onto the thatch roof. So it's quite possible. All of these integrated systems are possible. By the way, it was a lot cheaper than Cronje as well. Okay, any questions at this point? I know it's quite a long presentation, but I need to carry the message of hope, the message of solutions. Questions?
What's the cost of using the UV light for the treatment of the pool?
The cost of a UV light for the pool compared to chlorine, your initial capital cost, depending on the size of the pool, your capital cost can be anywhere between 7,000 up to 20,000 rand, depending on, that's the money you've got to pay for the equipment. But then you replace the lamp once a year if you're on your pump 24/7. If you're on your pump 12 hours a day, you replace your lamp every 2 years at the cost of about 1,000 rand. So you don't have the ongoing cost of buying chlorine. There's a capital cost for the equipment, but then you have, let's say with installation, 1,500 rand every 2 years to replace your lamp. So eventually it's a lot cheaper. Any other questions?
There are also rainwater treatment systems to be able to use rainwater in your house. What would the cost of that?
Is it household rainwater system or grey water system? Rainwater system. The average cost of a rainwater system, that depends very much on what needs to be done. As you've seen in this other case study where gutters had to be moved, the roofs had to be added, that becomes a more costly exercise. Other than that, you're looking at a water tank, depending on the size of the tank, the amount of you want to store as well. you're looking at about, depending on the manufacturer, 1,000 to 1,500 rand per 1,000 liters of water that you want to store. In other words, a 10,000 liter tank costing you about 15,000 rand. And then you've got your pump, you've got your filters. Thumbs up, Brendan?
Yeah, like 20 to 30, I would think, for an average.
20 to 30 for the most basic system.
Yeah.
Once you start adding the automatic changeovers, and if you add bigger tanks, you can go up to 60, 70,000. That's if there's not huge construction needed to get the rainwater to a central point. But the beauty is,
depends what you want to do with it. Like if it's just for filling your pool or irrigation, then it's obviously a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Than you
Oh,
do.
yeah. For use inside of the house.
yeah, inside of the house, you've got to do proper treatment. If it's for toilet flushing or for irrigation, it's obvious, or pool top-up, it's a lot cheaper as well. The nice part is you can start with something and you can expand on it. You can start with a tank and you can manually collect water if needed. Then, if there's more cash flow, you can add a pump to it. So you can start with something very basic and you can build on it as well. It doesn't mean that you have to start with a 200,000 rand system. So it depends very much. What we do in cases like this, talking from a company point of view now, is we look at every customer's need, then we look at what is available, and then we look at the money side of things. And we bring all of that together. It becomes a Lego set. There's so many things we can play with, going from basic to most elaborate systems. But with that in mind, it can be custom made to the customer's need as well. But yeah, less than 20,000 rand, you're not really going to get away with anything meaningful. So,
the minimum size of your water tank to make an operation with minimum cost of 20,000 rand viable, according to property size. So obviously, if you're living in a 40 or 60 square place, you won't have space to store more than, say, for example, 2,500 liters max on the property without any ground. Where is that balance point? Do you have a minimum recommended reservoir size per property area that you catch rainwater?
the question is there a minimum level where it becomes a break-even point? Where below that it doesn't become worthwhile? I don't think so. The more rainwater you can store, the quicker your payback. The less you can store, the longer your payback, but you will have a payback, that's for sure. And if you're looking at municipal water, just looking at South Joburg again, in the last 3 years, the water prices increased 9%, 9.5%, and 9% again. So water inflation is above inflation. It will continue to be above inflation to try and catch up with the infrastructure that is in the condition that it is. So whatever investment you now make, you will have free water. Whatever amount it is, you will have that amount of water. Remember also when it rains, it doesn't rain one day and nothing for the other 364 days of the year. Every time it rains, you harvest water. Every time it rains, you store. Yes, the more you can store, the more you benefit, but I don't believe there's a minimum cut-off point.
Is there no, in terms of running costs, because remember your pump is consumable, that's not for the last year. So if you're paying, say, for example, what, if you use a DSD, cheapest DSD pumps in the market is probably something like 8,000 to 9,000 rand. Operational cost on that means you have to have a balancing because
Okay.
it's consumable.
Yeah, but what you now need to keep in mind, you're talking about the operational cost of the pump because the pump will fail and need to be replaced. Your pump is designed to run a certain number of hours. So if you have a small tank, your pump will run less hours before it runs out of water. So instead of lasting 8 years, your pump may last 16 years. If you have a bigger tank, you replace your pump more often because it has reached its end-of-life design capacity. Filter is the same. The more water you have in your tank, the more water you put through your filters, the more often you need to replace them. The less water you have in your tank, the longer it takes between filter change intervals. So yes, there's a capital cost that's fixed, but the operational cost actually becomes the operational cost per litre that you put through there. It doesn't matter what volume it is.
Any water use license is required.
Water use license required, to the best of my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected. If guys with the EAs can help me out here. Now, for rainwater harvesting on your average domestic scale is not needed. You start getting into, if you get into serious volume, if you take water from rivers and stuff, it's a different story. But if you catch off your roof, there's no license required for that.
So, Gerhard, maybe just on that, so we've got an instance now where...
I'm going to hand the mic to you quickly.
Sorry, we've got an instance now where a large commercial property was collecting all their rainwater into an attenuation pond that they built, and then abstracting the water from that pond and using it, and now that seems to be a grey area. So now Vula license is coming into play there, so water use license is coming into play there. It doesn't make any sense because they built the attenuation pond. It's their rainwater off their roofs that's going, but because they're pumping it from the pond, now it's a bit of an issue. So, but on a domestic level, there's no problem, and most standard, smaller commercial properties, there's no issue with it.
So the problem is not the rainwater, the problem is the pond.
The problem is the pond. Yes, you see, our legislation has never really. It wasn't designed for the situation we find ourselves in right now.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, if they put it into use, maybe that's no problem, yeah.
Isn't there legislation regarding the amount of water that is allowed to store above ground?
Okay, we're going to repeat a lot of things here because we do have people online as well. We have people in Kenya and in South America also listening to us. Yes, there is. You read your legislation, it's a few million litres that you can store before you actually start getting into that. What happened in the case of this pond, it is now seen as a dam. And you can only have a certain size dam, and that's where the problem comes in. But you need to catch some serious rainwater before you run into legislation problems there. At the back?
Just to comment on the gentleman's question about payback period on the residential side, you also need to keep in mind that the more water that you have available, the more you will actually consume. You're actually going to reach a quicker payback period eventually. Because if you've got no water, you can't calculate the saving interest. If you only have 10 liters a month available, you can only calculate with that 10 liters. But now you've got 30 or 40 available, so you're actually using all your are actually paying back.
Yeah, so the short version of what you're saying, just to repeat it for everybody, is the more water you can store, the quicker you pay back. Which is natural. Absolutely. Anything else? Right, we're going to step onto grey water and then wastewater, where you see even bigger benefits coming through. Looking at grey water. Before I change the slide now, I want to again ask, who in this room doesn't like the idea of grey water because it smells really bad the minute you use it and you irrigate with it? Okay, see some heads nodding there. How many people doesn't like the idea because of the foul? Okay, there's some more hands coming up. And that is true. A lot of people don't want to harvest grey water because it's associated with foul odor. You can't afford to send your wife go shopping every time you want to irrigate the garden with grey water. That sum doesn't make sense. But when you treat it, you don't have the foul odor problem. If you treat it, you can store it for months at a time. I know, I've done it. And it can be used for an array of non-drinking purposes. There are guys that put it through filters, taking it to drinking water, but then you need to register as a water services provider. It becomes a lot more difficult. Use it for irrigating your garden, use it for flushing your toilet, use it for hosing off your paving. And then you don't trigger any of those, and it's cheap. Now, when you use grey water, as I said earlier, you reduce your potable water demand, so you save your municipal bill. But even if you do rainwater harvesting, your rainwater tanks will last longer. So you have a double score of the same water source. But at the same time, it's coming back to what Darren said. If we use our grey water, we reduce the amount of wastewater we send to the municipal systems, which are often overloaded. So when we reduce volume to the municipal systems, we give them a chance to do a better job. Not only will they discharge less water, but they will discharge treated effluent of a better quality, which has a double benefit again to our river systems. And when you use it, keep in mind, depending on the source of the grey water, it may contain bacteria. If somebody was ill or something like that. So if you use it where human contact is possible, like irrigating a sports field that somebody's going to play on there, do disinfect it before you discharge, before you use it for irrigation purposes. This is just, now from here on I'm going to use a few products that are built by my own company. I'm not saying these are the only products on the market. I'm not saying these are absolutely the best. We always try to be the best. I'm using this as an example because this is what I know best. There are other companies, there are other manufacturers in the industry. So this is not to talk down to any manufacturer or play off one against the other. I'm just showing you what is practically possible. In this case, it's an underground tank. That's the one that you saw in the lawn there. You'll see it again just now. Underground tank with a filtration chamber, taking out the hair and the lint and all the other stuff. A storage chamber where it's aerated, and then we pump from there. So you're taking a lot of your coarse debris out here. All that stuff that normally clog up your non-return valve of the pump. The stuff that actually clogs up your pump. Those things we filter out beforehand, and then we take it into the irrigation system. With this system, you can put it through your automatic irrigation and it won't clog your sprinklers. The longest one in use is 9 years now, without any problems. So that's that same one there. We do have another irrigation filter to take out finer stuff. Remember, we've got the coarse filter on gravity, and then on the pump line a finer filter, the pump there, and it feeds straight into the irrigation system. In this case, there's also an automatic changeover because the grey water alone may not be enough. So when you run out of grey water, or if you're on holiday and there's nobody there generating grey water, if the grey water tank runs out, you will automatically change over to municipal water. It's all done automated again. Now you can go one step further. You have your rainwater harvesting system. And if that is full, it can overflow and you can top up your grey water system. But then you need to be very careful when you do that. Because when it's full, you want your grey water to overflow to the sewer, otherwise your grey water ends up in our rivers. And you want your rainwater to overflow to the stormwater, otherwise you flood our sewer systems and create another problem. It's doable, we've done it before. So the two waters will mix in the tank, and when the tank is full, it will actually shut off the rainwater, divert it to a different direction, going into the stormwater, and the grey water will just overflow into the sewer system. So that is quite possible. Here's another case. Chris, I think this is more in your line of tanks, but small maybe. But there you've got your rainwater harvesting system, you've got your grey water system under the trampoline. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. In this case, there was no space underground, so we put a filter chamber and lifting station in the paving. And then the grey water tank here, there's the pump for the grey water system, and rainwater harvesting right next to it. So again, very small space, slimline tanks. Yes, they cost a bit of money, but you can put them like we've done here, and there's still enough space in the walkway. This guy couldn't fit a 2,500 tank because then there's no space to walk. So these are 1,000-litre slim lines. There's your filter station and your pump that you see in the picture there. The little panel that we've built that does your automatic switch over. So here you can have different inputs, your tank water, municipal water with an automatic switch over. But remember, with the automatic switch over, you need to have your RPZ in place as well. So the panel is not the only answer. You need to definitely do that RPZ. This is for a block of flats. There's your filter chamber, there's your storage aeration chamber, and here we go in a double VSD system through the filters, through disinfection, and then it goes back into toilet flushing. Remember, toilet flushing in a domestic setup is about 30% of your water. So if you do this, you save 30%. This is, in this case, it's a block of flats, so there's not a lot of garden to do compared to the amount of grey water. They have a lot more grey water than what they can use for irrigation. But now they can take it back to the toilets as well. And this is a campus, university campus, where it's a grey water system. There's an underground collection tank below this building, and then it's filtered and it's stored in the tank there, and then used again for toilet flushing and for irrigating the sports fields. So these are the practical things that are possible with grey water systems. Again, I'm not going into design details because then you'll be here till next week, and I don't think you want to listen to my voice that long. Any questions on grey water before we move on to the last topic? Are there restrictions as to where you can use grey water? You cannot use it anywhere where it comes in direct with human contact. In other words, you can't use it for showers, you can't use it for drinking, you can use it for irrigation, you can use it for hard landscaping, cleaning, not human contact, not inside the house. Yeah, of course, you don't want it in your neighbor's property because why do you want to give your neighbor free water anyway if you have a shortage? No, definitely not. And of course, when you do rainwater, grey water, you don't want runoff into your stormwater system because then you start getting into river pollution again. So there's a few basic things to keep in mind. If you use it for garden irrigation, whatever nutrients is in the grey water will be taken up by the plants. What I didn't say here is your grey water often contains ammonia. Ammonia coming from your detergents, coming from somebody taking a leak in the shower or something like that. And your ammonia is not good for the garden in the long run. But the grey water system that uses an aeration process will change your ammonia over to nitrates. Nitrates is fertilizer for your plants. And I'm speaking of practical sites that I've done in Cape Town. The one site used to use 18 kiloliters of grey water plus 12 kiloliters of municipal water per month in summer to keep the garden alive. That was on the old anaerobic grey water systems. With the drought in Cape Town, I designed and changed over to this aerobic system. I shut off the municipal line because there was a water shortage and said whatever survives on the 18 kiloliters of grey water must survive. Whatever dies, too bad. The garden was looking better using only the grey water with aeration than it was using 18 kiloliters of grey water plus 12 kiloliters of municipal water. So you condition your water, you improve the quality of the water, you turn your ammonia into nitrates, and your garden will look significantly better with even less water that you put on there. So it's very, very important to do that investment and do aerate your grey water before you use it for irrigation. If you want to know how, you can put your name down there and we'll get back to you later. Yes, sir.
Maintenance on the grey water systems, that first chamber, is it a regular thing? Obviously, it depends on the density and the chemical use, but what sort of thing?
What's the maintenance on the first chamber of that grey water system? It very much depends on abuse. If you have, for instance, a few people living there with long hair, then you will maintain it more often than short hair. It depends on what you put on the drain at the end of the day. That specific one that you saw there, that was the first prototype I installed in my house in Cape Town. I used to clean that filter once every 3 months in the tank. The other filter, the pressurized filter, after 3 years I opened it for the first time to see what it looks like inside because I've never had a pressure problem. But that's what you're looking at. You can stretch it up to 6 months even. The more abuse, the more regular you're going to clean it. Any other questions? You get other kinds of pre-filters as well that need a lot more maintenance. These ones are designed specific for that. We bring it in from America. That's specifically designed for these core screenings up front. And it's easy. What's not in the slideshow again, is that filter has a cartridge that you can pull out, and it takes you 1 minute. I've got a video where a guy does it. It takes you 1 minute, throws it off with a hose pipe, and put it back in. It's very, very simple to do. Anything else on there? Right, let's look at we can make real big impacts. Wastewater. Now, things have changed quite a bit now compared to 5 years and 10 years back. But in general, if I have to say to you, you have a high density commercial area and you now need to start treating wastewater and use it. How many people think it's possible to do that in a high density city environment? That's only 4 people in the entire room. Well, okay, you're one of the 4, Laura. Let me show you something. First of all, let's look at our water cycle. We have our catchment area, which normally the water ends up in a dam somewhere. We abstract from that dam, we put it through a filtration system, we use it, we discharge it through an overloaded municipal wastewater treatment works, and we pollute our water course. Now, this is very important. Remember what I said earlier, when you flush it, it's gone, it's out of sight, it's not your problem. Look what's happening here. It's coming back to be your problem because you're feeding it into water courses that feed your drinking water. I do apologize for the sensitive ears, but you're literally pouring in your own drinking water. When you discharge your wastewater to a non-functional or overloaded municipal wastewater treatment work, you're pouring in your own drinking water. There's no nice way to say it. Okay, now, but in my town it's different because in my town, this wastewater system discharged below the dam wall. Oh, beautiful, you just feed it to your neighbor. Come on, where's Ubuntu here? That's what we end up doing. At a previous meeting, I said, okay, everybody by a show of hands who believes eating healthy is good. And just about everybody put up their hands, and the next thing I asked is, who likes some nice grapes every now and again? And everybody put up their hands again. I said, now you think if you flush a problem in Gauteng, it's going to go down the Vaal River, it's not your problem? Guess what? Your grapes come from Uppington. The farmers in Uppington has a problem with E. coli in their water in the river because that river is coming from Gauteng. So you export your sewage problem to Uppington and you import it back in the form of grapes. That's how the water cycle works, whether we like it or not. But there's another little problem here. The other problem is if you look at the carbon footprint. Again, not many people think that water has a carbon footprint, okay? It's a natural thing. How can that have a carbon footprint? Would you agree? Well, the problem is, if you're in Pretoria and you get water from the Vaal Dam, what's the figure? About 60% from Pretoria's water coming from the Vaal, I think. Well, if you look there, that's 124 kilometers line of sight. So you're looking at about 150, 200 kilometers of pipeline that you need to pump that water. But your problem is from here to there is a 300-meter rise. You need 30 bars of pressure to lift the water to Joburg before you can flow it down to Pretoria. 30 bars of pressure, to give you an idea, your irrigation system at home runs on 3 bars. Your average geyser runs at 4 bars. We're talking 30 bars here to lift that water to Joburg before you can get it to Pretoria. What is your carbon footprint on that pipeline? What is your carbon footprint on those pumps? What's your carbon footprint on the electricity that you use for that? Now we're not even talking purification and all the other stuff that goes with it. So your cost and your carbon footprint becomes huge in cases like this. So what we now do is we start thinking a little bit different. When we do on-site reuse, so whatever wastewater we have here, we treat on-site, we take it back. We now start talking about increased water resilience. And remember, every time you flush a toilet and you treat it, you have water to flush the toilet again, no matter whether the municipal water is on or off. So we're also talking continuation of operation, because people can stay on site, at least they can use the ablutions. Yes, you may have to buy from your local grocery store water for making coffee, but at least you have water for ablutions that you don't have to truck in. But the minute you do this, you reduce your abstraction from your water course. You reduce the pressure on your treatment system. You reduce your discharge, you have fewer overflowing sewer manholes, and you reduce the volume in Olifantsfontein wastewater treatment works. So you get a better quality effluent feeding the Hennops, which eventually feeds Harties again. So you improve your total water cycle. You score big money here. Coming back, I don't have the figures on right now for City of Tshwane, but City of Joburg, commercial again, we're talking 98 rand a kiloliter to get water from there. For commercial reuse here, you can do it for as little as 8 rand. A saving of 90 rand. That's a saving of close to 90%. Which other investment will give you a saving of 90%? Come on, think about it. Financial savings, financial benefit because you have water at least for ablutions or other non-drinking purposes. Your doors can remain open, you don't have to close down like the Supreme Court. And you have a positive effect on the entire water cycle. Again, if you reduce your usage here, you leave more water there, so you build resilience from that point of view for your drinking water. So it's a win, 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 win all the way. In 2020, the University of Stellenbosch, and I'm not going to try to give you all the details, but in 2020, the University of Stellenbosch said, retaining and recycling water to address water scarcity in the city of Cape Town. They looked at all possible water sources taking Cape Town into the future. They excluded desalination because of the cost. And there's this whole document. If anybody wants it, we can email it to you, talking about the benefits and how you can move forward and how recycling will save the day and for Cape Town become a water source for the future. Exactly the same thing applies here. I'm going to show you one technology. There's not enough time to go through different technologies. Yes, it is our technology. I'm a little bit biased here, okay? The fusion system, which is an underground installed wastewater treatment plant, and it will recycle your water on site for you. Comes standard with a panel that has an early warning system, so if anything goes wrong with this system, it will immediately warn you before you have a pollution problem. And these early warning systems, I think, are critical, because something can go wrong, it's man-made, but you need to know when things go wrong. These 7 steps, I'm not going through them in detail. I can tell you that quite a number of wastewater treatment plants in South Africa, I almost want to say 90% of the small plants, stop at stage number 3. These stages are missing. And you can take it with anything, even if you bake something at home, take out half your ingredients of the recipe and see if that recipe is going to work. There's certain things that are needed for a wastewater treatment plant to work. So before you look at the price, because that's what most people do, before you look at the price, look at what you get for the price. Because I've seen that so often. People buying cheap and then having to remove it again later. I'm not going to spend time on the technical side of it. Just keep in mind, without disinfection, there are at least 6 steps of treatment that need to happen. to get to the water quality that by law you need to get to if you want to use or discharge this water. Okay? But at the same time, again, for pollution, otherwise you end up weighing again in your drinking water. Case studies. Where do you think is the highest risk installation you can have in terms of if your system fails, you will have big problems? Where do you think is the highest risk installation? Let me see if I can get 2 or 3 people to answer that question for me. No, you're not allowed to. You know the answer. Come on. You know the answer to Nora, you're not allowed to answer. And so does Andries and Arno. I'm listening, sir. Close to any natural water system, yes. But if you step it up a bit more, where's the highest risk? How about the Department of Environmental Affairs? This is the Department of Environmental Affairs in the city of Cape Town. You can see it's dense city. There's no space. You see in the middle of the building there's a tree growing out there. If you take a closer look, that's the same tree. If you look outside, there's no space. Okay, you can't do anything here with water. You can't harvest rainwater, there's no space. You can't recycle, there's no space, okay? Everybody agree? Look at what we've done. In that quad, surrounded by high-rise buildings, 2 meters away from Environmental Affairs boardroom, we recycle their wastewater and we flush their toilets for the last 6 years. I see Nora nodding here. Nora's been there. She did an audit on this thing. The user experience, Nora, good or bad? Very good. This is what we're getting out of the system. And we've cut the water demand by 50%. Remember I said for domestic toilet flush is about 30%. Here we're talking about the commercial building where toilet flush can be up to 90%. In this case it's 50% because they have showers and stuff as well. So you've just cut your water bill by half. But you have water resilience. You always have toilet flush water. For 6 years going now, I think the case study speaks for itself. You can do it in the city. You can make a positive difference. And that's why today's theme is talking solutions. Because we hear so much about the problems out in the media already. Let's talk solutions. This is on a small building. You can see how nicely it blends in with the gardens. There's your treated effluent again. Your air pump. Now the air pump, going back a little bit, there's your air pumps there that's supplying. We had to put in 4 small plants because we physically had to carry them through the building. We couldn't put one big plant in because it just wouldn't fit. But that again is the beauty of having a Lego set. You can pick what's needed. So hiding that air pump there in the garden, we use the false rock. In the walkway, in the paving, if you want to drive over it, you've got to do a proper slab. I know Andries has done one where people drive over it in the driveway feeding to an hotel. Unfortunately, Andries, I don't have that photo in the slideshow, but that is also possible. Hospitality industry feeds into the fusion. They use the water for irrigation purposes. There is farms, houses at the farms. Kiro School, Bloemfontein. Again, you can see the treated effluent. They're using that for the sports field irrigation. But the beauty, now we start talking modular systems because this was designed for a school having a maximum of 600 learners. So then the school grew, they're just over 800 learners now, so the wastewater treatment plant is too small. Oh, big problem. Nope. We just dropped in number 3. And now they can go up to 900 learners. When they go above 900, we drop in number 4. And so we can expand as the demand of the site expands. Isn't that beautiful? These are mostly Andries installations. Andries, staan net voor op en almal kan sien wie is jy. Jou Arno, jy kan maar saam opstaan, julle is saam aan die besigheid. They've been doing this in Gauteng since 2012. So these are all installations that Andries have done above ground. Some of them are in Mpumalanga, some are here, not very far from here in fact. Then if we look at bigger developments, this one is in Katima Molilo, Namibia. Each color is a different phase. So there is phase 1 coming in. They've got 2 phases up and running now. These ones are now up and running, and these phases will still come in. So even within the development, rather than having a central sewer system at a huge cost and pumping stations, because it's relatively flat there, they decentralize within the development, and each phase will get their own set of treatment plants, and they will reuse the water in that phase for irrigation purposes. What a beauty. You literally do clusters as you move along. There you can see the final grade of the system. This one we did phase 1 in November last year. You can see many more phases to come. Again, this is in KZN's typically hilly areas. The EIA experts will now tell you what a nightmare that become in terms of, well, some will make a lot of money, so for them it's not a nightmare, but every time you have a waterway crossing or a catchment crossing, the EIAs need to go through, and the pumping stations to pump it up 50 meters or 100 meters. So in this case, it will be fully decentralized. This is the shopping center that we've done here, shopping center, filling station and church, and the rest of this development will come as they build. The next phase is in a few months from now. So there you can see what it looks like. These 7 plants standing here will service the shopping center, the filling station, and the church. In the case of a domestic setup, this will serve 140 houses. It uses 2.5 kilowatts per hour. That's nothing. For 140 houses, 2.5 kilowatts per hour, that's just for the treatment, it excludes pumping back and so forth. It's out of sight, fits in very nicely with your landscape. There are a few more projects like that coming up, and in future we will have some more to show on that. There you can see the 7 tanks during the installation period. This is a filling station, again the treated effluent. A mining village, again the treated effluent, which they wanted to use for growing veggies on site there. A campsite. Okay, here you don't put your drinking water, you sleep next to your pool. But imagine from a noise point of view, you're out in nature, it's all quiet. These are individual campsites, so you don't have a neighbor. And you've got your air pump running there, you don't hear it at night. Kango caves making use of this technology, where they pump their wastewater up to that point. It gravity feeds to a lifting station here. They pump it up, treat it, pump it higher up on the mountain, and bring it back for toilet flushing and for irrigation. Frologate Nature Reserve, the Whip Nature Reserve, where you go on the whale trail, you will have your fusions there treating your wastewater. There are more nature reserves. There's a botanical garden, a few others as well. We cannot do all of them. So the case studies is just to show you it is possible in just about any location. Different technologies are suitable better for certain locations, but you can do it anyway, and you can recycle 100% of your water for non-drinking. If you want to take it to drinking purposes, then you go through a reverse osmosis system. You will have, depending on the system that you use, anywhere between 25 and 45% waste. So there you do lose water. But it also becomes more expensive. We are busy with a case now where there is no drinking water. There is no municipal supply. The boreholes can only deliver 8% of the total volume needed. Rainwater harvesting is difficult. It's going to be done, but for 3 months of the year there is no rain. So the only option left is that we take treated effluent back to drinking water standards and then blend it in with the rainwater and the boreholes to be the total answer. So it's doable, but it is your more expensive solution. Your cheap solution is to use that for non-drinking purposes and save your expensive water for drinking, for showering, for human contact. Okay. Taking lead from the Cape. Now remember, you've already seen, I've got to be very careful, I know I'm in global country now, so you've already seen University of Stellenbosch, the study that they've done, and I just want to mention something on that. That papers talk about industrial reuse. After the paper was published, I met with a professor and he said to me, Gerhard, but what you're doing is changing our model completely because you can now do domestic water as well. Reuse become a much bigger factor. Obviously, they're not going to rewrite the paper. City of Cape Town already in 2018 bylaws said renovations and new developments must make use of water conservation and demand management systems or alternative water systems for non-drinking purposes. It's already by law in Cape Town. And I stand to be corrected, but I believe that Ekurhuleni is also coming to a point where they said new developments must do their own wastewater treatment because they can't do it anymore. So these things are changing. Municipalities used to resist this. They don't really have an option but now to adopt this. Green Cape has done a study also in 2020 promoting on-site treatment and reuse. I may be in trouble for what I'm going to say now, but I'm not known to be scared of trouble. Green Cape, their purpose is to promote green technology. Started up and funded by the Western Cape government and City of Cape Town. Now these are private funders as well. I couldn't quite get Green Cape to buy into this thing. They did a lot of other green stuff, but this wastewater recycling thing, they didn't like that idea. Until I went to show them the case study at Department of Environmental Affairs. 3 months later, they issued this paper, because then they saw in proof what is possible. Another study by them was the Kangaroo Capes. You can read up it on the website. They actually give you the numbers. And this is the first property where we did on-site wastewater treatment, August of 2010. The beauty is they're moving that house now. They've broken it down last year, they're moving it. They're taking out the infusion, they're moving it with. So there's some green material. Also going to the Solar Impulse Foundation. There's only 2 companies in Africa that's listed with the Solar Impulse. This is one of them. So I think that is, and to list there's a set of criteria, and one of them is you must already be in commercial operation. It's not a trial or a design or a test phase, it must already be commercially accepted. Then when we look at on-site wastewater, I'm not going to spend time on that, but we speak to 13 of the 17 SDGs. Not all 13 necessarily on the same site, but we speak to 13 of the 17 SDGs. Now, to all the corporates sitting here, and all the consultants to corporates, if you want to increase your SDG score, have a look at this. This is a way to do it. Now, you can take it one step further. If you do need to spend, if you're corporate, you need to spend your corporate responsibilities. You need to spend money in the communities. When you spend money in a community, you start talking about no poverty, because people can use the water to grow food. You talk about zero hunger. You talk about gender equality. You talk about health. How do you talk about health when you're talking wastewater? It's very simple. Kids don't play in sewage contaminated soil anymore because you're giving proper sanitation. So when you fund something like this for a community, You score SGDs, but you also have your points for your community responsibility. So it's a double win yet again. And lastly, this is specific to our company. If you look at partnerships, the way we do it is we partner with local installers and local maintenance people. So we create local wealth, build a local economy. And that's where the partnerships come in. For those of you who say, yes, I'd like to do this, but it's too expensive, I don't have 100 or 200 or 5 million, whatever the case may be, to spend on this intervention, it can be financed. We're working with capital bulks there. So you can finance it, and your saving in buying water can carry your installment. So you're cash flow neutral until your investment is paid off, and then you're cash flow positive. So you can get involved in this intervention without having to fork out the big money that you don't have. There is also a possibility of rentals that's a bit more strict, but there is also a possibility we have companies that don't want to buy the equipment, they don't want it on their books, but they will rather have the operational expense of a rental. It is also possible through a financing model. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, I want to say on-site recycling will increase your water resilience. It will reduce your overhead expenses in not buying water, or buying less water at least. It will reduce your carbon footprint, increase your sustainable development rating. It will increase your ESG score because your E, environmental, you need to drop your water consumption by 20%. You can do it with this. So you can score on your ESG. And you save our water courses, which Darren will love when you go off grid. Thank you very much. Question at the back? Sorry, Darren, over here.
Yeah, sorry, just regarding your financial modeling. I know legislation is saying bylaws and capital is great. But I'm specifically talking to raising taxes and rebates in terms of the sewage charge. So incoming water, you get the charge for the outgoing in terms of sewer, they normally take the same meter read. So with this type of system you're using for irrigation, Cape Town's catching up, like you're saying, Gauteng's far behind. So on the development side, we find ourselves behind the 8 ball to look at the long-term win of raising taxes.
Okay, so if we're talking from a financial model, your sewage in any municipality is calculated as a percentage of your water consumption. Joburg used to charge you per site, but that was, there was a court case and they lost the case. It's now charged as a percentage of your water consumption. So even if you use it for irrigation purposes, because what happens is the municipality will charge you for your total water intake. They don't care what you do with it inside your property. So when you irrigate with municipal water, you actually pay a sewage charge because they can't distinguish where you use it. When you irrigate with treated effluent, you take in less water, so you pay less for your water, but at the same time, your sewer charge also drops. So there's a direct financial benefit, and that's where you can even finance it. When it comes to the capital expense, that differs from municipality to municipality. Because Cape Town, they started this after years of negotiation. When Potsdam was out of capacity, polluting the Milnerton Lagoon, and they stopped all development. Of course, there was a huge outcry. And Cape Town then said what they will do is they will allow on-site treatment. They call it package plants, I hate that word, but anyway. They will allow package plants for new developments in the affected areas. In other words, where they don't have capacity. They then said when there is capacity, the developer will need to decommission and remove the system and reconnect back to the municipal line. To help the developer with the cost, they decided not to charge the bulk infrastructure contribution or development contribution for sewage. So you'd still pay your DC for water, electricity, roads and that stuff, but they would discount the DC for sewage, which was the financial incentive from a capital point of view. Not all municipalities do that. Cape Town has subsequently now changed, and they said, provided that your system complied to the National Water Act, your effluent, you can now opt to keep your system, or you can opt to connect back. And if you keep your system, and you can prove that you don't discharge to the municipal system, they don't charge you any sewage. Again, Cape Town is a little bit ahead of many other municipalities, but that is coming through. But even without that, you will have a net saving. Cape Town now has taken it one step further, where they say on an application basis, they will allow it even outside the affected areas. So wherever you develop, you can apply to do your own thing now because it's going green, it's sustainable, all of those things. And many other municipalities are following as far as that's concerned. So financially, the financial model will differ from municipality to municipality. It also differs from schools to industrial to domestic. But we will have to run the modeling. We've got the models, it's a matter of plugging in the figures and see where the sweet spot for the site is. Yes, sir?
Is there a possibility of extracting biogas as a byproduct?
Extracting biogas, not in our system, because we pump air into the system, you dilute your methane significantly. You can have a biogas system upstream, but the effluent from a biogas system, you cannot legally discharge. So you can have a biogas system upstream, and there you can even put your grass clippings or whatever else in, and the effluent you can take into the fusion for polishing, and then you can recover your water. So it'll become a dual system. But not, there are other systems where you can harvest biogas, but not this one. Okay, so firstly, if we talk bylaws that differ from municipality to municipality, a lot of municipalities now don't have an official bylaw, so they just allow you to do your own thing. Because remember, the absence of a bylaw doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means they don't have a way to regulate it. When it comes to maintenance, this is now privately owned. This is not owned by the city, and the city won't maintain it. It's on your property, being it a body corporate, a homeowners association, a commercial site, a private house, it doesn't matter. There is a legal entity. In the case of a developer, the developer will transfer that to the HOA or the body corporate when you transfer the rest of the services. So they remain responsible. And the municipalities will often ask for an SLA. So there's an SLA in place with a private company to make sure this is maintained. And they can ask for test results on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever the case may be, and also depending on volume. So they can call for that. And I would love them to call for it, because if it's not maintained, you sit with downstream pollution. The nice thing is, when you have on-site, Dries will tell you, in his younger days, they removed 17 car rims, they removed 17 motor car rims from a municipal sewer line near Vakplaas. We've seen TVs, we've seen scaffolding, we've seen newborns, we've seen all things coming down municipal lines. People don't care because they dump it, it's not their problem. If it's on site, it is your problem, so immediately people are directly affected and will take better care of their wastewater treatment plant compared to with the municipal system. So you also shift ownership, you shift responsibility significantly.